Jorma Kaukonen. Jorma, I am just freaking out. If somebody really, when I saw you for the first time when I was 13 years old, I was
Uh-oh.
13 years old. What was I doing at the Filmore East when I was 13 years old?
Probably not something your parents were encouraging, but yeah.
Would you let your kid? I mean, my kids, I still know where my kids are.
R- So yeah, I mean, if you think about it though, and back in those days, I guess if you think about rock and roll stars or whatever you want to call what it is that we do.
You are a rock and roll star.
Well, bless you, Vicky, bless you. It's like, you know, I was probably 26 or 27 then, which is like almost aging out in that line of work. But but everything that was going on back then was such a zeitgeist on so many levels. So, and you were part of it.
Okay, so tell me, for me, I'm going to be 69 in a few weeks. I've been
Kids.
to a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
I have never been to a venue like the Fillmore East for me. Was it as magical for you guys up there as it was for us in the house?
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. And you have to wonder why that was, what the deal was, and the answer is I don't know, but it was.
mm,
It was.
yeah. My
Did you
goodness.
ever go to any of those like I'm in San Francisco, Thanksgiving or Christmas shows
I
where
did
Graham
not.
would like fly a huge airplane down
Oh,
I mean, it was wacky.
I only got to go to maybe a half dozen shows. I was 13, 14, and by the time I was 15, it was closed. It was gone.
Yeah, right,
So,
of course.
yeah, I didn't get to go to a whole lot of shows there. But I saw you there twice, and
Mhm.
that's pretty amazing. And you guys, and as I said before we came on the air, I didn't get to see you with the Jefferson Airplane, which I love Hot Tuna. I've always loved Hot Tuna from day one, but I got to tell you, Jefferson Airplane, life-changing for me. Surrealistic Pillow, I said in my notes, top 10 albums. It's a lie. Top 5 albums of all times. I have listened to that. I told you I came into my marriage with my album in both my hands, and left my marriage with it still clutched in my hands.
Good. First things first.
I mean, and I just read that you said that the Library of Congress has picked 25 albums, and that's one of them.
Was.
Was
You think about all this stuff that's happened to, well, me and my pals. I mean, we didn't get in the music business for awards or anything like that. We just wanted to play.
right.
But along the way, stuff happens, and every now and then it goes. It's like it's almost inconceivable. And I grew up in Washington D.C., and when I wrote my senior class term paper, which I wrote on Big Bill Brunzi, I went to the Library of Congress to research it and all these libraries and stuff like that. I mean, to be part of that thing. Again, growing up in D.C., I'm a museum kid. It's like wow, that's pretty cool.
Very cool. So, but you grew up now. I know you also spent time in Pakistan. Is
Sure. So my dad, to long story short, I'll make this as short as possible. My dad was in World War II, of course, as most parents of my generation were. And when he got out, for some reason, he wound up spending a lot of time in the Far East, and he ultimately got a job um, with the Asia Foundation, and subsequently with the State Department. So we traveled a lot of places, and the Asia Foundation, which was probably some government spook thing, who knows. Uh, we lived in Pakistan, moved over there when I was 13, and came back when I was just about old enough to drive in the States, and it was awesome.
it was awesome. So my guest last week, a friend of mine named Rumor. Have you ever heard of Rumor? She's a singer. She is from
My daughter
Pakistan
would
too.
know her. I
She
guarantee
would.
it. I would
So
guarantee it.
so how were you what was music like in Pakistan?
So the the music in Pakistan was totally indigenous, and because my father was sort of in a cultural kind of a thing. They had tabla players and sitar players and all this kind of stuff, but Voice of America and the BBC. That's where we tuned in with our shortwave radios and heard the music that was happening in Europe and back in the States.
So what were you listening to?
Well,
You.
me, Bill Haley, Rock Around the Clock on the 78 that I brought with me from the States.
The only one.
I only had one, or maybe it was the only one that made it. But anyway,
So, so, so you didn't have a lot of rock and roll influence or a lot of,
no, it was like the funny thing about it, is to fast forward a little bit, is that the answer is no, we didn't. And then when we came back to the States at the end of that tour, we came back on the Julia Cesare, which is the sister ship to the Andrew Doria that sunk off New York back then. There were still wreckage in the water when we went through that, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, and so they were playing rock and roll in the kids' lounges on this boat. And I
right?
heard Elvis for the first time. It's like, what planet is this coming from?
Oh my God.
We
Oh my
my
God.
my tell with this is we left the States to what uh how much of that doggy in the window, and we came back to Hound Dog.
So, so, so music wasn't really a big part of your life over there.
Well, I wasn't playing music at that time, but
When did you start playing
I
piano?
started playing I played piano when I was a kid, but yeah, I did it because we had to, and I was a middle income American guy. You get that.
Right.
But we listen to music all the time. And of course, the thing with the kids is always listening to music. When some new person would come from the States and they'd have a couple of new records, it was like we'd basically have a party around the new records. But like I said, we were just in such a cultural backwater there that when we came back to the States, it was like going from black and white to Technicolor.
Feast to famine. So, I mean,
Totally.
famine to feast, I guess.
In this
So,
case, yeah.
okay. So you're how old when you get back to the States?
So I got back to the States when I was 15. We came back in the beginning of that summer because I turned 16 later that year and got my first car.
Got your first car. I thought you were going to say your first guitar. When
I
was the
got my
guitar?
first guitar. I'll see. I guess I started playing the guitar in, wow, probably 54. I probably got my first guitar in 54. Seems like a long time ago. Wait, it is a long time ago.
Everything's relative. Okay, so you get your first guitar. Do you study?
So, yeah, of course. As a matter of fact, my first
Oh
guitar
God.
looked a little bit like this one. But anyway,
What
so
my first guitar, my only was a Harmony Sovereign. What was your first guitar?
So funny, we'll get to that because when I first learned how to play, it was a Harmony Sovereign. Which is
Stop.
it? If you couldn't afford a Martin or a Gibson, you got a Harmony Sovereign.
That's right.
It's a great guitar. So anyway,
Well, it
so
had
yeah,
really easy action. It had a very thin neck, low action. Yeah.
it's a great guitar. Do you still have it?
No.
All right, we can talk. We'll talk about that later. So anyway, I had this friend in school, Mike Oliver, his name was, and he was playing guitar, and it just seemed like, first of all, he looked so cool because he had sideburns and everything, and and he showed me a couple things, and I borrowed his guitar and showed my dad that I could play a couple Carter family songs or Johnny Cash, something like that. And so he bought me my first guitar, which looked very much like the one I just flashed you there. In Washington D.C. at that time, there was a store called the Guitar Store. I think it was called, on Connecticut Avenue, and it was owned by this guy named Sophocles Pappas, this Greek guy that was contemporary of and a friend of Segovia's, who was a
Wow.
classic player. And they had a couple of jazz players and stuff. I mean, and so Sophocles was my first teacher, and he was so repulsed, I think, by the music that I was trying to play, because he also taught you to read. I started out reading music, and so
Was he
one of
teaching you on did he teach you on a classic guitar?
no, no, against his will, he taught me on the steel string guitar. And but we had we had this sheet music, and I was playing with a flat pick, not with my fingers, and there were little carrots for downstrokes and upstrokes, and playing not how much of that dog in the window, but just songs that were just repulsive to me. But I knew that it was important to learn and to hang in there
Mm.
and to get what I needed to know before I could go off on my own. And as soon as I started to learn a little bit more about it and listening to music all the time, I mean, it was such a guitar centric time. Buddy
What
Holly.
guitar at the time was attracting you, Yorma? Whose playing was calling to you?
I think, well, I listened to a lot of the Carter family and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I think Buddy Holly was the guy that really got me going.
Mm.
Really, and Ricky Nelson. You know,
Wow.
but
Wow.
there's a place where lovers go to our heartaches away, and they call it lonesome. So anyway, so all those.
Did you watch Ozzie and Harriet
Of
when you
course, are you kidding? So yeah, so Ricky Nelson really, of course he had a lot of Jim Burton playing guitar. There was a lot of fancy stuff, but the songs were doable for guys like me. I remember I had my hair cut like his, all that stuff. Yeah, we wouldn't miss Ozzy and Harriet. Hey, I remember when Ricky's brother went hill climbing on a motorcycle. I was like, holy cow, look at this.
Hell yeah. So okay, so Ricky Nelson. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're playing that kind of stuff. So you're not playing lead guitar,
Oh
you're
no,
playing rhythm guitar.
right, and I never set out to be a guitar player. I mean, that stuff was so over my head. I just wanted to sing the songs, and
Ah.
so that's kind of how I started out.
Did you
And
study voice? Did you take voice
I
lessons?
did not. I did not. And I would encourage, as my daughter is a great singer, and I've encouraged her, if you get a chance to study voice, do so. It won't
Mhm.
change you, it'll make you a better singer. But anyway, no. So all those, especially Ricky Nelson, but some of the Buddy Holly stuff was in a vocal range that a guy like me could do. And so in our first band, when I got together with Jack in 1958,
Okay,
Jack
you're
was
gonna have to
really.
go back and tell me how you met him, but finish this story first. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so yeah, so just listening to songs on the radio, picking out stuff that I could not only play rhythmically because that's all I knew how to do back then, and to sing also.
Right.
So fast forward a little bit. My dad got stationed to the Philippines, went over there for a while, took my guitar along, just thrashed around, learned nothing really, just having a good time, et cetera, et cetera. Coming back to the States in 1958 because I wanted to graduate high school with my buddies at Woodrow Wilson, now Jackson Reed. Wilson's out, Jackson Reed is in. Anyway, and so I met Jackson. Jack's older brother and I became friends because he was a friend of the guy that taught me the first songs. And so, Chick, that was Jack's oldest brother, then we started hanging out and stuff like that. And I immediately realized Jack was taking like jazz guitar lesson stuff. He was a guitar player back then, and for whatever reason, and he was 3 years younger than me, which made a big difference back in those days. But we just liked each other, and we realized that more than like each other, we liked the same stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was almost thinking about dragging Jack to come in and sit in on this thing a little bit with you, but I think he's at the gym or something like that because he's that guy. But uh, but yeah,
I
so
saw that he wears socks that have the name of the day on them.
yeah, not all the time, but yes, he is that guy.
He's
He
that
is that
guy.
guy. So Jack immediately, because he is that guy, immediately found somebody to be a drummer and somebody else to play bass guitar, and we just kind of like we just like my friend Chris Smither says, great songwriter. I
Was that when
fell.
you were you the Triumphs? Is
It
that
was, that we became the Triumphs, yeah. Chris said, I fell into it when I was a kid and I never fell out of it. The same thing was true of me. And as for the
and you
Triumphs,
guys are playing cover songs at this
oh,
time?
absolutely,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Writing a song was incomprehensible. But we loved motorcycles, hence the name Triumphs. Excuse me, hairball. And the symbol. The people that like motorcycles know this. The symbol on our drum head was the Triumph motorcycle logo.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway, so one thing led to another, and we just started playing together and
So
had
now
a good
what
time.
covers are you doing back then?
Well, um, I believe it or not, it's hard to imagine with me choking this hairball up right now, but I used to be able to do Conway Twitty's Only Make Believe. Yeah,
Woo!
that ship set sailed a long time ago. Oh, stuff like that,
And what kind of gigs are you what are what gigs are you getting?
Okay, so that's a good question. So our first gig, Woodrow Wilson, high school. had sororities. And
Oh.
one of the girl down the street, Lois Searles, she and I had a dog washing business together when we were 10 or 11 years old. She was in one of these sororities, and they said, "Look, we're having a party in this gal's basement. We'll hire you guys to play." And we said, "Great." So that was our first gig. I forget what the sorority was, some Greek obscure thing. And I remember that we made enough, I think we probably made like, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks, which gave us enough money to go to the Hot Shops, which was a drive-in restaurant not far from where we lived, and pull up, the people came out and served you in your car and stuff,
Sure.
and get a burger.
No, come on. Burgers were only like a quarter back then.
Yeah, they were a little more than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you get fries. It was awesome.
So, okay, so you guys are the Triumph. So did Jack become the bass player because he was 3 years younger, and so you're gonna play bass? Was it that
Well,
kind
he
of
became
thing?
he became a bass player later, but before we get to that,
Yeah.
so like I said, Jack was always hustling, and the drummer in our band knew a lot of people, so we started playing bars, and you had to be
Were
18.
you old enough? Were you
No,
old
not
enough?
really.
Hmm.
So the first thing we did was to make fake IDs. Now listen, everybody does fake IDs. Before my daughter was old enough, she did it too, and I asked, "What state do you live in?" And she said, "Michigan." So back in those days, as soon as
Mhm.
we had to register with the Selective Service, and I got my draft card and all that kind of stuff, like we all did back then. I was living with my grandparents my senior year in high school, and my grandparents was doing some research stuff for the government, and he had this. It was high tech at
Ooh,
the time.
that sounds a little like
It was about water, air and water pollution. It wasn't really that exciting, but probably
okay.
much more important. But anyway, so we had this copy machine, and my job, my senior high school, was making copies for him. And I looked at this thing, and I realized that if I borrowed Jack's older brother's draft card, and I put some white tape over his name and birthdays and stuff like that, I could make a copy of the front and the back of that card, which I did. And then we got some double face sticky tape, and I put them together, and
Oh
I
yeah.
typed in all my information within, and then we laminated it. Now, I can't believe anybody didn't just look at this thing and go, "You got to be kidding me!" But the joints that Jack and I were playing really didn't care that much. And my grandmother, may she rest in peace, used to say, "Where are you going to tonight?" And "It's a school night." And I'd say, "Nana, Jack and I are playing the club tonight." And she probably had a vision of some country club or something like that. These were bars in Southeast. They were beyond minimalistic. That's all I'm
Oh,
going to say.
wow. Oh wow, to be a
I
fly on
remember at the
that
time,
wall.
I thought, I'm going to grow up and marry a cocktail waitress. I mean, that's the way it looked to me.
So okay, so how do the Triumphs become okay, now wait, way before Jefferson Airplane, you're playing with Janis Joplin. I mean, this
Yeah, well,
is
that's a little bit
you're
later.
that's later. Okay, so you're playing with Jack, you're doing the Triumphs. Okay, so what happens next?
Okay, so Jess, that was my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So then I graduated. Jack was 3 years behind me, and I went to Antioch College.
Okay, so my old boyfriend went there too. Were you a we were commies. Were you a
So
lefty liberal?
I really was sort of apolitical then, but when I went there, all my extremely conservative friends at home, "You're going to that pinko free love school in the Midwest?" And I
That's
went,
right.
"The key words here are free love," and the answer is yes. So I met this guy there, my second quarter there, named Ian Buchanan. He's since passed away. And he was in New York, one of the guys, along with Dave Van Rock, and he was friends with Reverend Gary Davis. And we wound up in an off-campus house together. And at this time, I was thrashing away, and I believe that my guitar playing, my music was so irritating to him that he took it upon himself to to teach me how to fingerpick, and he changed my life. And my
Wow.
next Antioch co-op job, I remember that let's see. So he so
Oh,
oh I put it in drop D because there's a song you want to hear later on. But anyway, he he uh he started teaching me this stuff. Now, in those days, I've been teaching guitar for a long time, and I actually know what it is that I'm doing, can explain it, I hope. But in those days, he just said, Jerry, because that's what they called me back then. Jerry, here's how it goes. Put these picks on. Here's how you wear them. Here's how it goes. And I'd go, all right, stop. And I'd run off in a corner, and I'd struggle around. I'd come back. How's this? And he'd go, you suck. I told you this is how it goes. But I stuck with it, and he stuck with it, and he changed my life. And my next,
wow.
my next, my next off-campus thing was working in New York at a spinal cord damage hospital, and as an orderly, they
I was going
had
to say,
jobs,
wow.
bedpans, all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, that's why I don't like to
Vanessa's
see.
on here, by the way.
I know she is. I know she is.
Okay.
She's heard this story before.
No, she's saying
But
she loves your stories, even though she's married
oh,
to you.
well, she's very patient. I appreciate that. But yeah. So I was working at the Rusk Institute for Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation,
Wow.
400 East 34th Street. But every waking moment of my life was down at the village, playing and doing this and doing that and meeting people, and it was awesome. And in that 3 months, it changed my life.
So
And
okay, so I used to run a club down there that used to be the other end. It became the Rock and Roll Cafe. But what clubs were you doing down? Were you doing the Cafe
well,
Wow?
Gertie,
What were you playing?
no, the Cafe Wa, I wasn't well enough to do well enough known, but Gertie's Folk City would let anybody play. I saw
Sure.
Reverend Davis play there. I saw, gosh, so many people, but they had these. Remember Hoot Nannies? We call them open mics today.
Sure.
And so, and I just started playing there all the time. Now, I also met two people through my buddy Ian, named Marty Brennan and Linda Fuchs. So we started a little country band together. So I did some flat picking at the same time too. I mean, that's all I did when I wasn't working at the hospital. I was hanging out and playing different kinds of music, and it was awesome. And as a matter of fact, I remember I was in Gertie's Folk City at one point, and this probably would have been the summer of 1960.
Mm,
I looked over at the bar and I said, "That looks like Bob Dylan,"
it was
and
Bob
it
Dylan.
was Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure Bob doesn't remember this, but he borrowed $5 from me. Okay,
Oh, stop.
so fast forward, or at least that's how I remember it. I could be bullshitting, but I think I remember it that way. I was on a Phil and Friends tour where he was touring with Bob Dylan when Larry Campbell and Charlie Sexton were in his band, and I played. I'm sitting in with Phil and doing this kind of stuff, and I was talking to my friend about this my one Bob Dylan story, and he says I wouldn't mention it. I don't think he has that kind of a sense of humor. But at the end of that show, this large security guy came over. I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan, by the way. This is not came up. The big security guy came over and said, "Mr. Kaukonen," and I looked at him and I said, "Yes," and he said, "Mr. Dylan would like to say hello to you." And Bob came over and shook my hand. He said, "Hey, Jorma, long time," and that was it. But it was
Get
awesome.
get out of here.
Yeah.
We just went to see him at the Hollywood Bowl, and I waited all these years, and I have to tell you, he would not play one song that anybody knew.
Well,
And he stood behind a piano, he wouldn't play guitar. I mean, he was just curmudgeonly.
I'll
It
tell you,
was
back in that time that we're talking about here in 1960, I saw him at the New Haven Folk Festival.
oh,
And when I saw him solo live, I totally got it. It was an
oh.
awesome performance.
Oh my God. He was my God for so long.
Yeah, of
And yeah,
course. Of
yeah,
course.
he was the guy. But
Yeah.
okay, but you're not like that. You're a people pleaser. You don't go out there. You give the people. Yes, you go out there and you play embryonic journey. You make
I
people
do.
happy.
Well, you know, well, we could talk about being a people pleaser.
I
I
don't
was
mean that in a bad
no, no,
program
I
way.
understand it. I understand that. I'm a Yorma pleaser.
Yeah,
I really love what I'm doing. I really
that's
do.
wonderful.
I've always loved playing. I played for people when I probably shouldn't have. When I probably couldn't really play.
Oh,
I just enjoyed shared with you what was going on. I mean, the guitar has always been such a dear friend to me, and in a lot of ways, it's saved my life over the years.
were you one of those guys? Were you sleeping with your guitar? Were you playing like all day, all night?
Pretty
Was it
much. Back in
attached
the
to?
early time, pretty
Mhm.
much, yeah. And I don't keep it as clean as I used to, but it used to be spotless.
Yeah.
This poor girl here, I take as good care of her as I can, but it's a
I
working
bet Jack's
instrument.
bass is still spotless.
So,
No,
Jack, it's funny you should mention it because if you come to see our show when we're down your
I'm gonna
way,
come.
I guarantee that he's going to clean his bass on stage at least twice. We were just rehearsing before you and I started chatting here, and we're sitting in this room, and he cleaned his bass, which by the way is an interesting story. He's got this bass back that got stolen years ago when we were with the airplane, and he just started playing it again. And it's a really funny thing about instruments, when he's playing this bass, because he always has great instruments. He's Jack Casady for God's sakes. But when he plays this bass, it's like a window in time. It really is very when I listen to it, it's awesome.
Wow. Okay, so let's go back to that. So you're the
Sure.
Triumphs. You
Yep.
you go over to the then after that you go over to
Well, I went back. So I was Triumphs, went to college, went to have that summer in New York that changed my life, like I said. Went back to so I didn't get thrown out of Antioch College, but I was not encouraged to come back at the end of that quarter. Because even though Antioch was that pinko free love school in the Midwest, they did occasionally like you to do your schoolwork, and I was playing the guitar all the time. So I went back. My dad was stationed in the Philippines, and I went to this Jesuit school in the Philippines, the Ateneo de Manila.
Okay,
And
wait, time out for 1 second.
yes,
Do you know at that time that you have some Jewish heritage?
oh yeah, of course,
You
absolutely.
always knew that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Okay, but you were
yeah.
raised
Oh yeah, you
Jesuit.
should. My grandmother, she hung out with Emma Goldman. She was like a complete anarchist on every level, and she was also an unbelievable atheist. And my grandfather, had he not been married to her, would have probably been a rabbi. So yeah, so growing up in the D.C. area, did you ever see that movie Avalon? It's probably 20 years old. It's about the
I'm
Jewish family.
Jewish, and that's faux Jewish compared to my
Right.
upbringing. But
My
yeah,
sister, my
yeah.
sister. So So that's my family. You go to the beach, all the big Buick sedans, everybody in black, the food. So that's below the Mason-Dixon line. So
Right.
my best friend, Bill Hale, who was from Tappahannock, Virginia, is considerably south of the Mason-Dixon line. And I remember when I'd go to his place, I'd tell his mother, "This isn't Southern cooking," and she would be mortally offended. But anyhow, yeah. So quick story about my grandmother. So I had a motorcycle that I sold, and we drove back from Antioch College to pick it up because it was in my grandparents' basement. We show up in the middle of the night, of course, and we wake them up, and we have the trailer in this car and all this kind of stuff. And she starts going, Shouldn't you be in class?" And my friend Joe Zinman, may he rest in peace, goes, "Mrs. Levine, Jerry, because that's what they called me back then, he's doing twice as well this quarter as he did last quarter." And my grandmother Vera spit on the floor, and she goes, "Twice nothing is still nothing."
That's a Jewish grandma.
That's my Jewish grandma. The other thing too is like her chopped liver was to die for. That's a
Oh
whole other
my
story
God.
too. But she also but she was a great cook. And so when I would come over with Jack, maybe his brother, my friends when we were in high school, she'd put the food out and they'd be reaching for the food and she'd go, "No, no, that's for Jerry."
Oh, you gotta love it.
Gotta
You got
love it.
you
Gotta
gotta
love
love
it.
it. You gotta love it. That's so sweet. All right,
Where were
so
where were we? Where were we?
okay, so we were talking. So So you left, you were asked not to come back to college.
Right, that was the story. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
asked not, well, just not encouraged to come back.
Not
So
encouraged.
my family is still stationed in the Philippines, so I went over there, and the best college to go for somebody who didn't speak Tagalog or Spanish was the Ateneo. So I went to the Ateneo, and it was cool. Actually, I got to go on an expedition down to the Sulu Archipelago, where you and me are worth like $1 million to be kidnapped down there today and stuff like that. I did all this really interesting stuff. It was a lot of fun. And and when I wanted to come back to the States, I've been reading all this Jack Kerouac stuff, and I figure I really want to go to San Francisco because that's where it's happening. And so I applied to the University of San Francisco. This is Jesuit school, but my grades were nowhere near good enough for that. But they were good enough to get into Santa Clara. They wouldn't be today, but they would back then. And going to Santa Clara, again, something that changed my life because I met Paul Kantner there. He had just dropped out, and all Jerry Garcia, all that whole folk scene and stuff like that blew up on us. So winding up in a Jesuit school led me to be part of a psychedelic rock band.
That is just insane. Okay, so now are you
For a Jewish kid also.
so now because it's your mother's mother, your mother's mother,
Correct.
you're Jewish.
I am Jewish.
You are Jewish.
I am
God damn
Jewish.
it.
Yeah,
You're Jewish. God damn it.
yeah. My
Okay.
my nom my nom de Hebrew is Yuri Larone.
There you go. Okay. So were you weren't bar mitzvahed.
I was not, but Vanessa converted, and while she was doing that, I took the classes and stuff like that, and et cetera, et cetera. And when we went to the Orthodox cemetery where my grandparents are buried in Ellington, Connecticut, I can't do it anymore, but when I could read my grandfather's tombstone, it was awesome.
Wow.
I
My
can't
father
do
was
it
a Hebrew teacher and I can't read
anymore.
that. Yeah, anyway, wow, that's very impressive. Why did Vanessa convert? And she didn't do it for you
I
because
don't know if we could talk to her, she'd tell. No, not for me. Of course not. I
yeah,
don't know. It made
that was
sense
just
to her. It was
what
a Buddhist kind of thing.
I really like that. Actually, I saw on her page Vanessa Heddery's Jewish Mamita, Hebrew Mamita, and she did that in my living room. That's a whole nother story. Okay, never mind. So, all right. So now, okay, so were you doing psychedelics and were you already drinking and drugging and doing all of that before you met those guys in San Francisco?
Oh, well, we were. Listen, if drugs had been available to me when I was growing up in D.C., you bet your ass I would have been drugging. No, the drug of choice was alcohol, and that's just how it was. Um, I think that I didn't
And
even know
when did you start doing that? When was that the thing for you guys? Because like in New
drugs.
York, they didn't card us in New York. So we were drinking when we were
Oh yeah. Oh, listen,
babies.
I mean, I am so glad that neither of my kids behaved the way I did when I was their age.
Me too.
I'm lucky that I didn't kill myself or somebody else by driving under the influence. I mean, that's a sad fact. Now, cars didn't go as fast back then, but still, I mean, no, it was very fortunate. But somebody was looking out for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to quite see the light yet, but I remember when I came to California and stuff, I had some friends from Antioch that lived in San Francisco, and I used to take the bus up there to visit because San Francisco was San Francisco. And I remember, you got to come up because we've got some pot. You've smoked pot, haven't you? I was, oh, of course I've got smoked pot. So I took the bus up into my friend's place, and it was like a basement apartment with no windows at the corner of Haight and Waller, around the
Perfect
corner
place to do it.
around the corner from Jimmy's Giant Glass Saloon. Funny the stuff you remember. And I remember they had this little baggy thing, and they opened it up, and there are all these seeds and twigs. I mean, you know, if kids today probably don't know what a twig or a seed looks like because they go
No.
to the dispensary and buy it. But it was like, anyway, you know the deal. And we cleaned it up, and I've
On
smoked in it.
Surrealistic Pillow, on your album, we were
Oh, yeah.
cleaning the
right,
Yeah.
clean it up. And of course, it may not even been pot. Who knows? Nothing happened. It took a while before it finally happened. But
And how about, well, I believe the two times I saw Hot Tuna, I was tripping. Well, how
oh
about
no.
how about acid? I mean, so did that take till you got to San Francisco till you discovered that?
Okay. So the first time the acid, it's kind of hard to keep this timeline straight. Nobody that I knew about acid back in those days. But my last year at Santa Clara, I was living on. I'd gotten married. I was living in an off-campus house and stuff like that, playing all the time, etc., teaching, blah blah blah. And I had this roommate named Steve Mann. A sad story. Great, brilliant guitar player at his time. Guys need to look him up. And if you can find a copy of his album Straight Life, give it a
Wait,
listen.
what's his name?
Steve Mann, Mann.
Man.
Yeah, we had a bunch of us guitar players hung out together. It was me, Steve Mann, Tom Hobson, and this friend of mine named Richmond Talbot. And Steve Richmond was always coming up with these. We needed blues names. How long do we have to be in this game before we can have a game like Little Son Jorma or something like that? So the name that Steve gave me was Blind Thomas Jefferson Airplane, which is where the name of Jefferson Airplane came from. Steve Mann was Little Son Goldfarb, and Tom Hobson was Blind Outrage. Anyway, so we're back in this house, and Steve goes, we're sitting around playing the guitar as we did all the time, and he goes, "I got something you need to do." And I'm going, "What is it?" And he says, "It's called LSD." And I said, "Fine, give me some." So he gave me this thing, and we're playing, and then all this stuff started to happen, and this and that, and it was a good trip. So then the sun starts to come up, and now we can't stay in the house. There was four of us. We can't stay in the house anymore. It's starting to be confining, and so we borrowed this Volkswagen Bug, and all of us piled into this Bug. We're in Santa Clara. We drive up into the mountains down there, the Santa Clara Mountains, and I'm getting up to the top of this mountain, and I stall the thing right next to a cop car.
Oh.
So, but they didn't even pay any attention to it. We got it started, and then this is in my book. It's in the book, but I don't mind telling the story again. Anyway, so we're down on the 101. We're
Been
driving
so
down.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Been so long. We're down to the 101 driving this
Mhm.
thing, and I look in my still tripping, of course. And I don't kids, I don't recommend this, by the way. This is not something you need to be doing. And I look in my rearview mirror, and the mirror is filled with the grill of a semi truck. And I'm going, this thing is going to eat me alive. And at that moment, the Beatles song came on, and I heard a George Harrison solo. I wasn't a huge Beatle fan. Didn't dislike him. Let's not get in an argument about it. I was a Stones guy. It's more bluesy.
Wow.
But in that moment, I got it, and George Harrison's solo knocked my socks off. Again, changing my life on many levels. Anyway, yeah. How did we get there? Well, that was
I don't know.
wonderful.
Ricky's also a Stones. I just saw the Stones a few
How
weeks
was it?
ago. Loud. They were very loud, is what they were. I'm getting
Okay.
old. They were very
I hear
loud.
you. I hear you.
They were loud. Um, they were great. Mix,
It's awesome.
Mick and Keith are crazy, and
That's crazy.
they're
It's
yeah, they're
unbelievable.
they're
God bless them.
crazy. They're
Long may they
ridiculous.
wave.
Long and yeah, I'm sure they will long be waving. Okay, so you're in San Francisco.
Yep. Oh, so
You're
anyway, so as soon as I got out, as soon as the year I graduated from college, 65, to get us up there, Paul had already moved to San Francisco, and he said, I was just finishing up at Santa Clara, living in that same house, and I went out. He said, "Come on up. I want you to. We're doing this. I met this guy Marty Ballin, blah blah blah," and I went up. See, I was at that point. I was thinking about. I was going to. I was such an authentic blues musician that I was going to leave the country and become an expat in Denmark or some nonsense like that. I don't know what was going through my mind. But I went to San Francisco,
But wait, I
And
thought it was like 64 when you were playing with Janis and you did those
oh,
typewriter tapes.
I played with Janis in '62. The typewriter tapes were
Yeah.
in '64.
Okay. Okay. So now this is
Oh,
even before.
in that house where we took acid, by the way. Yeah.
So how did you meet Janis and how did that happen? And
Okay, so
did you get did you realize when you were playing with her that she was some crazy ass talent?
so you know, my higher power has been guiding me places more than we have time to talk about on this interview. So the first weekend, going back a little, first weekend, and I was in Santa Clara. I'm wandering around the campus, feeling like a fish out of water. It had just become a co-ed campus. It was beyond conservative.
Mm.
My first roommate before I moved off campus was the president of the Young Republicans Club. It was a nightmare.
Oh my.
So, I, not relax, Republicans. It's all good. No, but so I'm walking around the campus, and
Although
there's
I
this.
know what you guys did last night, and I'm very proud of you and thank you for
Oh,
doing
my
that.
pleasure. My pleasure. Um, and we didn't sound bad either. But anyway, so I see the sign and it says Hoot Nanny um, at the Folk Theater on First Avenue in Santa, and I just come from New York, and I thought, wow, I've only been here a couple days, and I'm going to go to basically an open mic. And so I go down there, and there's a tiny little storefront thing. And in the back room is my friend Steve Talbot, Richmond Talbot, who gave us the name Jefferson Airplane, and Janis Joplin, and a bunch of other local characters. And we're sitting in this tiny little room talking together, and Janis didn't have anybody to back her, and we started to talk, and we realized immediately we inhabited the same universe. Do you want to play with me? Fine. So we start playing together, and again, like you said, the first time she opened her mouth, it's like, holy shit. I knew that I was in the presence of greatness in that moment, and without being able to put two and two together, I realized that it was an immense privilege as an artist to be there for that moment. So we played together, and we played a bunch of songs, and my friend Talbot played some harmonica. There's some videos floating around on YouTube of this. I'm not video.
I've only heard the audio. I
No, no,
haven't
I'm
seen
sorry.
it.
They're not videos. There's pictures of
They're
them. They're audio.
audios.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
audio.
yeah.
Okay, it's audio. Yeah. My memory, yeah, man, we had color TV. Now, never mind. We didn't have any TVs. It was awesome. It was truly awesome. And so none of us really had cars back then. And Janice was I didn't know anything about her whatsoever. And but whenever she would come down the peninsula, if she's going to play in at at Palo Alto, Jerry Garcia, the place where Jerry played all the time, or in San Jose, she'd call me and I'd hop on the bus, go up, and we'd play together. In fact, the first solo gig that I ever got was at that gig in Palo Alto. I went up and she didn't show up, and I went on, and then they after that they hired me.
Wow.
But anyway, with her was awesome. And the typewriter tapes, we had a gig to do a benefit at the Coffee Gallery on Grant Street in San Francisco. And she had come down so we could rehearse some songs, and we played with Steve and stuff like that. And that's where the typewriter tapes came from.
Okay, so now was it annoying that your wife at the time was sitting back there typing away while you
Absolutely not. Because, people go, well, how could, weren't you? Listen, nothing bothered us when we were rehearsing. She was, she came over from Sweden. She was writing a letter. Nobody cared. We were just, because we weren't cutting tracks. I mean, I just got my tape recorder, so we recorded everything we did. And in retrospect, I'm glad we did. But as far as the typewriter, nah, who cared? It's just a typewriter.
I mean, it's hysterical and
It
it
is
kind of and it
hysterical.
totally works in there. So why were you not part of Big Brother? What made you guys not stay playing together?
Oh, so, you know, I don't think we ever. I'm not the only person that played with Janice. She played with a number of people whenever she needed it. And, if you ever see that documentary that they did, I think it might have been a PBS thing, I'm not sure, called Little Girl Blue about a decade or so ago. I'm not in it at all, even though they interviewed me for a long time, because I didn't get high with her because I wasn't doing drugs then, and I never had sex with her, so it didn't fit in with the motif of that stuff. With Janice and me, it was just about the music. We just played music, and it was a minuscule window in time. I mean, all this stuff is larger than life, you know, this far down the river, you know, but in terms of what things became, it's the blink of an eye, which I'm very grateful to have been a part of.
Her life was almost a blink of an eye,
It
actually.
was really. She died at what, 27 or something like that? I
Yeah,
mean,
her, Jimmy,
tragic,
Jimmy also. Did you
tragic,
have a
tragic.
relationship with Jimmy?
No, Jack. I remember I met him at Monterey, um, and Jack got to know him. Um, I went with Jack to Electric Ladyland when he was recording that album, because Jack played on a couple tracks with him. And
Jeez.
I think Noel Redding and I were smoking pot in an overdub room or something. It's like, I don't know. You know, it's just like, anyway.
Wow. Um, Mike Finnegan, I got to know Mike Finnegan a bit, and he played on a couple of those tracks. Wow. Okay, so now let's get to how you and how the airplane got
Sure.
to.
So anyway, so time's marching on, get graduating from college, and had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew it was going to be music. So Cantor calls me up while I still had a phone in an apartment, and he said, "Look, we're doing this. We're at this little club. It's going to be called the Matrix. Come on up and check it out." I had a beautiful 1937 Gibson L5 guitar with a DeArmond pickup on it and an ancient Princeton amp that was probably worth $5,000 today. But anyway, so I grabbed these two things and I went up, and it was him and Marty and Signe and a couple other guys that didn't last in the band very long. And I played with them with this amplified acoustic guitar, and it was fun. Much to my amazement, because at the time, well, I'm not, you know, rock and roll is not a serious art form. I'm going to Denmark, you know, whatever nonsense was going through my mind. I went, wow, this is really fun. And so I said, whatever you guys are doing, count me in. I'm along for the ride, and that's pretty much how that happened. Oh, the other thing was too is that Ken Kesey was there, and he had this Echoplex thing they plugged in. I mean, I just, you know, I wasn't an electric guitar player. I had this guitar that had a pickup on it, but you know, I just had it. I got a deal on it or something. And I plugged into this Echoplex and it made all these funny noises, and I went, wow, this really seems like it would be fun. So I hung in there, and the postscript to that evening was, oh no, this is later on. I was down there at the Matrix, and uh, yeah, Kesey came by on a motorcycle, and he gave me a ride home to my apartment on Visadero Street, which is why I will never ride on the back of anybody else's bike ever again.
What a
Anyway,
life you have lived. My
well, you
gosh.
know, we all have good stories, but I've been lucky. And the other thing, you know, not just lucky to be in that time. You
Mm.
know, yeah, you're right. A lot of interesting things have happened to me, but it's like right place, right time. You know, I mean, San
Amazing,
Francisco,
amazing.
totally,
Okay, so
totally,
now when you guys started to make that music, did you
yeah.
have any idea? Did you guys have any idea when you were making Surrealistic Pillow? How long did it take to make that album?
I think that album was done in less than 2 weeks. Jack would remember to the day.
What?
It might have been even a week. You know, first of all, I was still finding my way as an amplified guitar player. But talk about being lucky getting into a band with three great vocalists who were writing songs. And I wasn't real. I mean, I got, you know, Embryonic Journey on that record, but I was not a songwriter. You know, I mean, the synchronicity of all this stuff to drop into a band who also had no, they didn't set any limits of what they wanted me to play. You know, because there are a lot of great guitar players out there, but I learned to play electric guitar in that band, and as a result, I developed a sound it's an idiosyncratic sound. I mean, when I play, you know, it's me. You
Yes, we
know,
do.
and that is a direct result of the people I learned to play with.
Wow. And so did you guys know when you were making that album, as each track was coming down, did you, wow, okay, this is, I mean, did you know the first time you heard it? Because I knew the first time I heard White Rabbit, this is like nothing else that's ever.
So I'm going to just speak for myself, and the answer is probably not. Again, I was so intimidated to be in you know, being intimidated and self-conscious has a lot to do with substance abuse too, which we may talk about before this is done. But I was so intimidated by this whole situation and trying to find my way. But even though none of us had really been in the studio before, you know, Paul, Marty, and Grace had such a firm identity. I don't know if they knew it, but I could tell of who they were as artists. And back in those days, we were recording 4 track, no Dolby, so you could only overdub maybe once before the tape degraded. So all the basic tracks had to be cut live. Those are all cut live. And on the guitar solo on Somebody to Love, there's a little goof at the end of it. I mean, today we'd fix it, but as a result, that's part of the solo. That's how it goes, you know.
Wow.
So we're making live music back then, and again, guys that are recording with Pro Tools and this stuff. I'm not dissing this stuff. We were playing live music for the most part.
How did you get a recording how did you get in the studio?
So we could talk about this for a long time, but we got hooked up with this crooked manager named Matthew Cates. Now, a Jew who spells his name Kats and pronounces it Cates. I should have been suspicious about it immediately. But anyhow, so a lot of stuff. We were in a lawsuit with him until the 80s. Until the 80s. Long story, could have been worse. I'm okay. But he did get us a record deal. Matthew, thank you very much. And he got a record deal with a major. And our first record takes off. That's a folk rock record, and we had this producer Tommy Oliver and stuff like that. 3 track, no noise reduction. You got what you got. So when we got into the studio to do Surrealistic Pillow, you know, Dave Hassinger was the engineer. Rick Gerard produced it, you know. But you hear about Jerry because he was there for it. But we got to work with an A team. How did we get in? I'm not sure. But Dave Hassinger just engineered the Stones album, so we got to work with the big guys, and we got to work in the big studio at Sunset and Ivor, the big RCA studio where they did symphony orchestras. So we had all these. I mean, listen, how lucky do you have to get, really?
Well,
To work with
what do
great
they
guys
say?
like
Luck is opportunity, talent, preparedness meeting
yeah,
opportunity. I mean, it's
something like that.
yeah,
But
it's
and you know and we worked hard too. Again, we're talking about I think we made the record in less than 2 weeks because we wouldn't have had a budget to do it more than that. I think it took 6 months to do After Bathing at Baxter's.
wow, wow. Oh, so, okay, so now you break through the you break through superstar. Woodstock is just
Right.
crazy, and Grace's "Good morning, people." I mean, I can hear it in my head as
As
clear
can
as
I.
if,
As can I.
right, as if she said it just now.
Right.
Um, what was that for you guys? I mean, I assume you got flown in. How
No,
else would you have gotten
we
there?
drove in.
You did?
Yeah,
How'd you get there? I couldn't
we're
get
the
there. How'd you
we're the
get there?
working well. So everybody's staying at that Holiday Inn in Liberty, which is a story unto itself. We just drove in. I don't remember whether there's a station wagon or a sedan. I don't remember, but we just drove in. We did have an equipment truck that drove our equipment in. Our equipment truck, by the way, it looked like a UPS delivery truck with the sliding doors. It was an old bread delivery truck.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so when we had gone to look at the site because we knew that some of the guys who were putting it on the show the week before, so we kind of had to lay in the land. We drove a back road in to uh, to get to Woodstock, and we got in somehow we got in.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
like all roads. My brother was there for 5 days. Shout out to Jan Katz, by the
he's
way.
lucky he's not still there.
And and I'm there was nothing was moving.
No, there's a, you know, understandably, this is one of the iconic festivals of all time. Now, we're used to festivals today, and there are many that are larger than Woodstock and considerably better run, et cetera, et cetera. But Woodstock was Woodstock. There'll never be another one. I mean, that's just how it was. And and of course, as we know, we went on 18 hours late, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as we finished playing, we had to go to New York to get on the Dick Cavett show. So
Oh.
So driving in, we went in the back roads, drove in, parked our cars.
How'd you get out?
Now we're getting so driving out, there were cars on either side of the road, and all I can say, people, anybody that had a car parked back there that lost trim, my apologies.
Did you get to enjoy any of, I mean, well, first of all, what was it like for you? Did you get to, I assume you were stoned out of your mind like everybody else was. Did you
I can't
get to
remember.
did you get to take any of it in? Could you
The only band that we saw was Santana that went on before us, and I
Hmm.
will tell you, we've all seen the footage of that. It's one of the, if not the, one of the greatest live performances of any band
I have goosebumps. You
totally in my
just
lifetime. And here's a funny thing too. Michael Shreve, the drummer, I met him through my younger brother, and I remember we played around. He's such a great drummer, and I told Paul, we brought him down to L.A. to the studio. This kid, because he was a kid back then. This kid is great. We should, if we need another drummer, we should get him. We go, I don't think so. He's too young. And then the next day, of course, Soul Survivor, Santana.
wow. Unbelievable. Okay. All right. So I could literally talk to you till midnight. All right. So how does you're doing the Jefferson Airplane? You're the
Sure.
biggest thing. I mean, for kids like me, you're it. You're it. You're as important. That was my outlet. Oy, oy, oy.
Yeah.
So why Hot Tuna? How does that?
So, so for a brief moment in time, we were really big. And you're in the music business. You know what I'm talking about. Being big comes and goes. It's a flash in the pan. In that moment, we were really something. So anyway, Jack and I just really, again, I love to play. That's what I like to do. And I can't even remember, we can look at the other members of the band and say, whose fault was this? And the answer is somebody or some aggregate of somebody's just didn't want to work as much as we wanted to work. And so
Mm.
Jack and I, for many years on the road, actually not that many, it's probably a couple of years, seemed like a long time at the time, had been playing with me playing my acoustic guitar, Jack playing his electric bass in hotel rooms for a couple of years. And we built up a little repertoire of stuff. And and at that time, nobody was doing anything like that. I mean, today you see electric instruments with acoustic. There's nothing new under the sun anymore, but it was new back then. So we're playing the Filmore East, and I don't know, maybe Paul had to go to the restroom or something. I don't know, but he said, "Why don't you and Jack play a couple of songs?" And I grabbed my acoustic guitar, put a microphone on, no pickups back then, and we played a couple of songs, and the people liked it, and we thought, we should think about this. This may be an opportunity on some level. So we started playing some acoustic stuff together. Did the first album. We also had various incarnations of Electric Hot Tuna, but I think that that the interaction between Jack and myself, for whatever reason, even when we were kids and he was playing, playing lead guitar and I was playing rhythm guitar, we just listened to each other,
Hmm.
and we still do.
It's an amazing thing that your relationship has gone all of the and how and you don't just go to your separate you're not like Keith and Mick. You don't just go off stage and go to your separate corners. You guys like each
No.
other, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, we actually do. I mean, we don't live near each other, but if we did, it would be okay. We spend a lot of time together. Uh, Jack and I have, I think we respect each other as human beings and as artists. We have never had a band meeting. We've
What?
we've never, probably why we're still together. We're we're really if we were together, we're really when you come to the show, you'll meet him. We're really different people. It's like the Odd Couple, and I'll leave it to you to figure out who's who. But but yeah, I mean, we're just there for each other when it counts. He's my oldest friend. He's my oldest friend. We've been friends since he was 13 years old and I was barely 18.
There's a song called "You're My Best Friend." It's on my favorite album.
It
But
is.
anyway,
Skip Spence wrote that song.
what a song.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you, all right, I want to ask you a bunch more questions. I want you to play something, but I want to ask you about sobriety and about
Of course.
why. So
Sure.
you have Fur Peace Ranch now. You have this, which to me is you being of service.
Yeah. Agreed.
The fact that you teach is
Yeah.
amazing to me,
Right.
because this is something you don't have to do. You don't have to do that.
No, I don't.
Why do you teach?
That's a good question. Um, I started teaching again back in Santa Clara because that's the only way to make money. Cantor told me you ought to get a job teaching. Well, what should I teach? He goes, how about what you know? That's a good idea. But I think that over the years, teaching has made me a better player, for sure. No question about that. A better artist.
Mm.
But for some reason, even when that was the only way to make money when I was still going to college, I really enjoyed sharing it. Again, it goes back to this geeky love of the acoustic guitar, you know.
Mm.
And for some reason, when you show somebody something and that light bulb goes off and you see they get it, it's like it's as good as getting it yourself. I mean, I still feel that way. Um, and so as a result, the teaching always, I never thought about not doing it. Now there's a number of years when I didn't do it, and when Vanessa and I got the ranch started, when we started the ranch, I had already been sober for a number of years. But what happened in the ranch to be able to sit in that environment and to make the learning process unintimidating, you know, it was just so rewarding on so many levels. And as time has gone on, I'm horrible with names, so I'm not going to remember any names. There have been people that came through our ranch that were kids that have wound up being stars. I should know this because that's the kind of
Wow.
stuff that we should be able to talk about. Or at the very least, being professional musicians supporting themselves. I don't know. The musical community, especially acoustic music, is so sociable. You know, it's like going back to that business, the typewriter tape, sitting around. There's Janis sitting around. Steve, man, what do you want to play? I don't know. How about whatever? How about this? Not even rehearsing it, just boom, just sitting down to play, having that conversation. Now, of course, Jack and I are doing some rehearsing earlier. And again, when you meet him, you can see him doing this, him taking me to task for over embellishing a part. But you know something? No, but I listen to him because as a geeky guitar player, sometimes we get caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. I'm always telling my students, play the song, not the guitar. You
Wow.
know,
I
anyhow,
like that.
I like it too. I wish I
I
could
like
remember it all the
that.
time, but you know what I mean.
Okay, so tell me, Orma, the drinking, the drugging,
Sure.
did it get in your way? Did you miss shows? Did you screw up?
You know,
Did
well,
you
I've screwed up plenty. I'm going to go out on a limb. I was talking to Jack. I spent so much time in a blackout back in those days. There's a lot of stuff I just can't remember. So I, somebody's going to know this better than me, and I will defer to their judgment. I can't remember missing a show, But making that statement like that says a lot about the whole process itself. But I will say that when you're a slave to something, whatever that something is, that organizes your timeline. All of a sudden, your life has to revolve around whatever it is you need and when you need that. And when the party's over and you're not playing your own game anymore, it's not always easy to see that. I mean, I tried to get sober on a number of occasions before I actually did, and then one day the moment was right, and I was ready
This is
for
a
it.
good time to give a shout out to our friend Ricky Bird, who
Yeah, Ricky.
which is the reason that we're doing this. And thank you, Ricky. I love you, my friend for a long, long time.
Yeah, well, I'm
Um,
planning on being friends with him for a long, long time. I love him too. We got to talk, buddy.
and um, so okay, so being sober. So did you
Yeah.
do is how did you go to meetings? Did you do?
So I went to Hazelden in '93, and I did not stay sober when I get on. And I don't blame Hazelden for that. I just didn't do the work,
Hmm.
and I wasn't ready for it. Um, when you're ready, you're ready. And I
Hmm.
went to meetings. You
Hmm.
know, we have I live in a college town where there's more meetings than Carter has little liver pills, and so well, I can't find a meeting. Well, you didn't look very hard. So and it's really funny because I recently started going back to my men's group, and me and my one of my friends who got sober at the same pretty much the same time. We realized that there is only three people there that I recognize from the old days, and they were there when I came in, so they've been sober longer than me, and everybody else was new. But that's how
Oh.
that's how it ought to be. That's how it ought to be.
Well, well, maybe you'll come and speak at my home group, which is a Zoom meeting, and there's people there with a lot of time,
Oh, I'll bet.
and I like it that with I'm a newbie at 22, and I like it that way.
Yeah,
There's
well, every day
people.
is a miracle, as we say.
It is a miracle. So to me, okay, so tell us about Fur Peace Ranch. And
Sure.
what I really love about it is, now I don't know if I heard this right. I heard you say something, you and Vanessa were doing something for free. Like, I do this for fun and for free. This is a
Yeah.
way that I can be of
Yeah.
service out in the world. And
Right.
what do you guys do? You do something.
So I'm not sure we're doing anything for free right now, but we do it.
Not maybe not right now, maybe
But we
something
do
when you
it.
started.
You know. Look, we live in an extremely rural part of Southeast Ohio,
Hmm.
and we've been there for over 30 years. But we're still, oh, you live in the old Love Doll place. I could live there for 100 years and we'd still be new there. Uh, we've recently moved to Athens, which is a college town. We moved to Pomeroy when we first moved there. So when we started the Fur Peace Ranch, again, Vanessa has these visions. You've interfaced with her a little bit with your keyboard, but you guys get along great. She, I promise anything, but she makes it happen. you know. And so when we started building the ranch in '97, we maxed out every credit card that we had. See, I looked into 126 acres of land for $32,000 in the early '90s, and we just figured we would do something with it, and that's what we did with it. We maxed out credit cards. We didn't have to borrow money, but we were both working our ass off in order to keep the bills up on this stuff. And we had I can't remember how many buildings we wound. We wound up building a theater when we have like I don't know 25, 30 buildings, something like that. It's a little city. It's a little
Wow.
city. Next time I email you, I'll send you an aerial shot from my drone.
Wow.
But
So,
anyway, so
yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, so, but you have shows there as well, too. You have
So
little,
the other thing was we started having shows in this workshop that that probably should have only held 40 people, but that we managed to cram 80 in. We had so many great acts there. Again,
David Bromberg, right?
well,
Didn't you have
several
David?
several times. So,
Wow.
so Vanessa, again, we got a local bank to finance it, and we built a 200 plus seat theater. And we got an local NPR radio show. great sounding room. You can probably get 250 in it. Great little theater, the Fur Piece Station, we called it. And we became an interesting part of the community. Now, to get to the Fur Piece Ranch, you have to drive up this little road called St. Clair Road that's barely one car wide. And there's a couple of like the houses on the way up. I got to say, you know, our neighbors tolerated a lot of coming and going over the years. We recently sold the ranch. My sister-in-law bought it, and she's doing a wellness center there. But Fur Piece Productions is alive and well. And, Vanessa, again, we're looking at a theater in Logan, which is a little town north of us. It's going to be a beautifully restored theater. And who knows, that may be our new production home. We're still
Oh,
doing
wait. Oh, you
shows.
sold the ranch.
We just sold the ranch.
Oh,
We're still doing shows there till the end of the year, and we're going to continue to do shows. And we believe it's going to be in this historic theater in Logan, Ohio, which is, this is like I can't imagine you ever going through Southeast Ohio, but if you ever are, stop by. We'll show you around. It's really interesting.
so now how many people are you drawing from to fill that 200 seat theater?
You
Like,
know,
how
boy, I
far do
wish.
people have to drive to get there?
Well, we called it the Fur Piece Ranch because it's a fur piece from anywhere. We're a we're a destination, not a waypoint. And
Wow.
but over the years, because we've done so many great shows, we've had people come from literally Hong Kong, places in Europe. I mean, it's
Wow.
ridiculous.
Wow. And so that's not where you guys live anymore.
Now we moved to town, sort of, town light. I live in Athens Township, and our daughter graduated high school there last year, and there's a highway to get there from Pomeroy. When she started driving, I thought, I don't want this kid driving on this road twice a day, and so we got a place more or less in town. We're on this beautiful ridge overlooking Athens, blah blah blah. You know the deal.
Okay, so before we go, so you guys have stopped playing electric now. Is that so?
So that's a funny. This opens up a huge can of worms. We stopped touring with Electric Hot Tuna, and there's a lot of reasons for it. You know, I you know I was at a festival with Larry Campbell a month or so ago, and I brought my electric guitar because I haven't stopped playing electric. I'll play to sit in, but we're not. I don't think we're going to tour as an electric band. I'm going to be 84 years old this year, and
That
even
is,
though
I just want to say you are of mind, of body, of just extraordinary,
knock on wood, well, so far
extraordinary.
so good. But so the electric stuff, because we just did a tour about a year ago now. I think was our last electric tour.
I saw
And
the last show was at the Beacon. I remember
yeah,
showing
and,
you,
and, and
yeah.
we've still we can still do it, in my humble opinion. But it beats you up. It really does.
Mm.
But uh, if Larry, any of my buddies want me to bring my electric guitar, maybe I'll be one of Phil's friends again. I'm bringing my electric guitar because otherwise you'll never hear me. But as far as touring with the electric band, like we're doing a tour coming up a little later this fall, where we're gonna be playing with our drummer Justin. Love you, buddy. Love you. And we're gonna have some cool guests and stuff, but we're gonna be playing sitting down acoustically.
Sitting down is good.
I may go out on a limb and use a fancy pedal or two every now and then. We'll see, but
So Yorma, before we go, will you play something for us?
I will. I'd be more than happy to. And I'm gonna say now, you requested Embryonic Journey. I'm not. I always tell my guitar playing students and stuff, never apologize to civilians when you make a mistake, or before you play. I'm not warmed up. Would you prefer an instrumental or a song with lyrics?
You
You're
won't give us
you're
you won't give us one of each?
well. Let's see. Let's
But
see
and I
what
want to give a shout out to Nick Guzman, a young singer-songwriter who saw you at McCabe's, and who is and I'll and anyway, hey Nick, and he loves you.
Well, music, you gotta love it. Can you hear that?
I can. Okay, now that was perfection because you played that for us. That was perfection. Oh my God,
Well,
thank
it wasn't
you.
quite perfection. Wait, let me do. I can do it better. Hang on a sec.
No, Jack's not in the room. That was perfection. Okay, now
Okay.
one with lyrics.
Okay. So, okay. Let me do a little song that I wrote for our daughter when she was younger. Never been recorded,
Oh,
but it will be now because you're recording.
there you go.
Take your time. Life don't have to rhyme. Flying across the sky with no one to light your way. Listen to your heart. She knows where to start. Safely hand in hand. The moment has its say. All my songs from yesterday keep my heart in line. Had I listened to the noise, well, I'd still be marking time. Way you move, you've nothing left to prove. Only time will tell. Hiding in the wind, you'll never find the time unless you heed the sign. Life is Will that still be marking time? Wait no more. Hands upon the door. Clock it sings a song with a smile on its face. Take your time. Who knows what you'll find? May all your fates be kind. Take your time. Take your time.
How beautiful is that? Take your time. Yeah. Oh,
Easier said than
Jorma,
done sometimes.
you know, ah, I'm going to be smiling for a long time. I'm
Well,
going to
you're
be.
fun to talk to. Thanks for inviting me into your little room there.
Oh, I just had the best time and been so long. I started it. I now I'm going to do the deep dive here to read more of those stories.
It's got a
And
happy ending.
well, I don't think it's over yet. I think there's going
No,
to
I don't
a
think so
lot more to
either.
your story.
Well, hopefully there's a lot more to all of our stories. That's the deal. That's the deal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so, so much for doing this.
Well, my pleasure.
I so look forward to, we're coming, we're coming to Santa Barbara. We're coming.
Yep. You know how to
And
get a hold of me. Let me know, and we will make sure that you're treated to the exalted treatment, such as it is.
will do. Thank you again. Thank you, Vanessa, for making and Ricky. And I am so looking forward to it. And I'm so very grateful. Thank you. Take care. Have a wonderful evening.